Naomi Vance believed she was living a successful life until she discovered a truth that changed everything. Her husband was secretly planning to harm her and take control of everything she owned. What he never expected was that she would act first and turn the situation around in a way he could not predict. Earlier that day, Naomi had walked out of her downtown law office feeling proud after winning an important case that secured her reputation and a generous bonus, yet the praise from coworkers felt hollow. Though she smiled and accepted congratulations, her thoughts kept drifting back to her husband, Julian, who had grown distant and unfamiliar over the past few months. That evening, she arrived home sooner than usual to their elegant Atlanta townhouse and immediately noticed how quiet it was. The living room lights were on, his jacket lay across the sofa, and a half-filled glass sat untouched on the table, but Julian wasn't there. When she called his name, he appeared from the kitchen looking calm and polished, though something about his smile made her uneasy. She suggested they share dinner together like they used to, hoping to reconnect, and after a brief pause he agreed and ordered food. As they ate quietly in front of the television, Naomi studied him closely, sensing that the man across from her was no longer the partner she trusted, and deep down she knew this uneasy feeling was only the beginning of something much bigger and far more dangerous. Naomi casually asked how the Onyx Lounge was doing, pretending not to care, but Julian barely looked up from his food as he answered that business was steady and people always found reasons to go out. When she mentioned that he seemed constantly busy and that they hardly spent time together anymore, he glanced at her briefly, a hint of annoyance flashing across his face before he covered it with a practiced smile and said he was working hard for their future. Naomi nodded, though the explanation didn't sit right with her, and their meal ended in an uncomfortable quiet that felt heavier than words. After dinner, Julian went to the bedroom, while Naomi stayed behind with her laptop, acting as if she were checking messages, though her thoughts were elsewhere. When she noticed his phone left on the table, curiosity got the better of her, and using a passcode they once shared freely, she opened it and saw a short message from a contact labeled P that spoke about everything being ready for the next day and warned against mistakes. The vague tone made her uneasy, and her heart raced as she wondered what it meant, but she quickly put the phone down when she heard Julian returning. He paused at the doorway, asked if she was still working in a sharp tone, and after her quick reply he went back to the bedroom without another word, leaving Naomi sitting there with the growing feeling that something in her marriage was quietly falling apart. In the days that followed, that tension followed her everywhere, even to a dinner with close friends where Julian appeared charming and attentive, earning admiration from everyone, yet avoiding her eyes. And when her friend Chloe gently asked in private if everything was all right, Naomi could only offer a tired excuse, knowing deep down that things were far from fine. Chloe studied Naomi closely, her eyes steady and caring, as if she sensed there was more behind the polite answers, and gently reminded her that she was always there to listen, to which Naomi replied with a forced smile and quiet thanks before returning to the table. When the evening ended, Julian chose to stay behind for a few minutes to speak with another man while Naomi waited in the car, and from her seat she noticed the serious tone of their conversation and saw the man discreetly pass Julian an envelope, which he quickly slipped into his jacket. During the drive home, Naomi tried to calm herself but finally asked what that conversation was about, only to receive a short, distant reply about work matters that did not concern her, a response so cold it left her feeling more alone than she had in years. That night, while Julian slept peacefully, Naomi sat awake in the living room, staring out at the city lights and replaying every strange moment in her head, sensing danger without having clear proof. When Julian's phone buzzed on the table, she checked it and saw a brief message from P, urging him not to fail, filling her with fear and confusion. She chose not to confront him yet, knowing she needed answers before making any move, but deep inside she understood that the man she shared her life with was no longer who she believed him to be. As dawn approached and the alarm rang, Naomi was already awake, exhausted and tense, with the words of that message echoing in her mind and a growing resolve to protect herself, even though she had no idea what path lay ahead. Darius warned her gently that he would search for the truth, but she needed to be ready because answers are not always easy to face, and his words sent a chill through Naomi that she couldn't shake. A few days later his first report arrived at her office and she locked the door before opening it, her hands unsteady as she looked through the contents. Inside were clear photos of Julian meeting a large, rough-looking man behind his nightclub, their body language tense and serious, like two people finalizing something important. Darius identified the man as Duke Miller, someone known for shady dealings and a troubling past, and reading that name made Naomi's chest tighten with fear. She called Darius right away, asking why her husband would be involved with someone like that, and his careful response only made things worse, explaining that he had picked up parts of another conversation suggesting plans were being discussed, though nothing sounded lawful or harmless. That night, unable to keep her worry inside, Naomi tried to talk to Julian during dinner, watching his face closely as she mentioned concern about his late nights and the people he dealt with at the club. For a brief moment, his expression turned sharp before he covered it with a thin smile, brushing off her words and shifting the topic, but Naomi sensed the distance between them growing. The following day, Darius called again, this time with urgency in his voice, warning her that Julian might be catching on and that Duke had been seen questioning one of his contacts, which made it clear that things were becoming dangerous. As Naomi ended the call, her heart raced and she realized that whatever was unfolding was moving faster than she had expected, and there was no turning back now. Naomi asked what this warning really meant and whether she was at risk, and while the answer was uncertain, she was told that if Julian sensed he was being watched, he might act faster, which meant she needed to stay alert and protect herself. The suggestion to contact the authorities stayed with her, especially as the days went by and the tension at home grew heavier. Julian suddenly became overly caring, bringing flowers and planning special evenings, but Naomi felt it was an act meant to lower her guard, not genuine affection. Late one night, while carefully reviewing the investigators' papers again, she noticed something she had overlooked before. Large money transfers sent to an unknown account, timed closely with Julian's secret meetings. That discovery made it clear that time was slipping away and that her safety, future, and peace of mind were all on the line. By morning, after a long night of thinking, Naomi accepted that she could not handle this alone anymore. Driven by fear but also resolve, she went to the local police station and met Detective Marcus Jones, a calm and seasoned officer who immediately sensed the seriousness of her visit. As she sat across from him and began to speak, Naomi understood that sharing her story would bring her closer to answers, but it would also change everything that came next. Naomi spoke plainly, saying she believed her husband was planning to seriously harm her, and the room fell into a heavy silence as Detective Jones studied her face and listened carefully. When he asked if she had proof, she calmly placed the investigator's report, photos, and message records on his desk, giving him time to review everything in detail. He acknowledged the seriousness of the situation and explained that moving too fast could alert her husband, so every step had to be handled with care, then asked if she was ready to fully cooperate. Naomi agreed without hesitation, explaining that she feared what might happen if her husband realized she knew too much and wanted to be sure he could not avoid responsibility. That same day, the detective assembled his team and began forming a cautious plan, explaining that while the evidence was concerning, they needed clearer confirmation of intent. An undercover source would be placed close to the situation to gather direct proof, a decision Naomi accepted despite her fear, knowing her safety depended on it. Days later, the informant successfully gained trust and provided recordings that revealed disturbing conversations, where Julian spoke coldly about keeping Naomi unaware and following a set routine, words that confirmed to her that the man she married was no longer someone she recognized and that the danger she sensed was real. Duke replied in a firm, confident voice, assuring Julian that everything would unfold exactly as planned and that by the time anyone noticed something was wrong, it would already be over. Sitting in Detective Jones's office, Naomi listened to the recording with her hands clenched tightly, each sentence tearing apart the image she once had of her husband. Fear mixed with anger and a deep sense of loss as she realized the man who once promised her a future was now speaking about her life as if it were a problem to be removed. When the recording ended, Detective Jones asked if this evidence was enough to move forward, warning her that the next steps would be risky, but Naomi answered without hesitation that stopping him now was the only option. The team then made a difficult decision. Naomi would take part directly by having a careful conversation with Julian to draw out more details without accusing him outright, a plan that terrified her but also fueled her resolve. That evening she welcomed Julian home with a calm smile, wearing a necklace fitted with a discreet recording device, and spoke gently about feeling distant and wanting their relationship to feel strong again. Julian seemed uneasy but played along, giving practiced answers about work and reassurance that everything was fine, while Naomi kept her voice steady, telling him she trusted him completely. Beneath her calm words was a silent strength, and Julian could sense the weight behind them, as if he knew this conversation carried more meaning than he wanted to admit. Julian didn't answer right away, and his intense stare made Naomi feel as if he were trying to read her thoughts, but she stayed calm and gave nothing away. Later, when they went to the bedroom, he held her more tightly than usual, sending a cold shiver through her, yet she forced herself not to react, knowing that even a small sign of fear could ruin everything. Deep inside, she understood that the most difficult part was still ahead, but she was ready to face it because this was no longer just about her. It was about survival and taking back control of her life. A few hours later, the plan moved into action as Naomi met Detective Jones and his team at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, where the darkness and silence added to the tension. Under dim lights, the team carefully checked cameras and recording tools while Detective Jones explained the plan step by step, making it clear that everything had to look like an unfortunate accident to capture Julian's true reaction. Naomi listened closely, aware of how unreal it all felt, realizing she was no longer only the target but a crucial part of exposing the truth. As preparations continued, specialists carefully created the appearance of minor injuries using makeup, and Naomi avoided looking at herself for too long, focusing instead on staying strong. The staged scene would take place on a quiet road with a damaged car and clear signs of an accident, all set up with precision, while hidden cameras were placed nearby to ensure nothing was missed and the truth would finally come out. Naomi lay still on the cold ground, covered with a sheet, while the team quietly checked every last detail around her, and Detective Jones leaned down to speak softly, reminding her they could stop if she wanted, but she firmly said this was the only way forward. Even though her voice shook, she closed her eyes and focused on steady breathing, listening to distant traffic and the hushed movement of the officers, feeling each second stretch longer than the last. Once everything was set, Detective Jones placed an anonymous call to Julian's workplace, calmly reporting that Naomi had been in a serious accident, knowing his reaction would reveal the truth. From a nearby van, the team watched the live feed as Julian arrived, stopping his car suddenly and stepping out without rushing forward, his face showing no real worry, only a quiet, unsettling calm. Instead of panic, he spoke carelessly to himself, words that clearly showed relief rather than concern, all captured by the hidden microphone. As he moved closer, his comments confirmed what the team feared, and when he made a phone call suggesting everything had worked out in his favor, Detective Jones immediately gave the signal. Officers surrounded Julian before he could leave, restraining him as he protested in anger. Naomi then slowly sat up with assistance, her body shaking from the emotional weight of the moment, not the cold, while Julian stared at her in shock. Looking at him with tears and steady resolve, she made it clear that his choices had led to this outcome, and as he was taken away, Detective Jones gently reassured her, reminding her that her courage had brought the truth into the open and brought this painful chapter to an end. Naomi watched silently from behind the glass as Detective Jones faced Julian across the table. The room was thick with tension, Julian handcuffed, alternating between quiet anger and icy detachment, while Naomi's heart raced despite knowing she was safe. Jones placed a recorder on the table and asked directly why Julian had reacted with apparent satisfaction to her accident, rather than concern, but Julian's smile was cold and unconvincing. "I don't know what you mean," he said smoothly. "I was called, told she'd had an accident and everything I saw was staged. You should be questioning her, not me." Naomi felt a wave of anger but also a steely determination. She could see through his act. Detective Jones' eyes never wavered as he pressed further, knowing Julian would try to manipulate every word, but also aware that the evidence and recordings they had were enough to corner him. Naomi's hands clenched into fists, and she reminded herself silently that this was the moment to reveal the truth, and finally end the control Julian thought he had over her life. The investigators told Julian they had audio recordings, text messages and financial records, all suggesting he had been involved in a plan to seriously harm Naomi, and they wanted the names of anyone who helped him. Julian leaned forward and brushed it off, claiming it was all weak proof that any strong lawyer could tear apart, insisting he had no partners at all and even hinting that the truth might lie with people Naomi herself trusted. While Detective Jones stayed steady and professional, Naomi, watching from behind the glass, felt her heart race as she saw how calmly Julian twisted the story, using the same charm and confidence that once drew her in and now made him frightening. Later, in another room, Naomi sat with Detective Jones and the team as they reviewed a thick file filled with recordings and money trails, each page reminding her how deeply she had been deceived. The detective explained that Duke was now a major focus and that a voicemail suggested others could still be involved, meaning the situation might be far from over. Exhausted, Naomi asked if Julian's arrest wasn't enough, but Jones gently explained that if others were connected, her safety could still be at risk and protection was necessary. Though she agreed, the idea of constant monitoring made her feel confined, and she realized that what she once hoped would be the end was really a new chapter. That night, alone in a plain, quiet room arranged by the police, Naomi struggled to take it all in, missing the warmth of her old life despite everything. Sitting on the bed with her phone, she finally called her best friend Chloe, craving a familiar voice, and when Chloe answered with clear concern, Naomi admitted softly that everything felt unreal and she wasn't sure how to feel at all. Julian was finally in custody, yet Naomi admitted to Chloe that her world still felt shattered, as if everything she believed about her life and her relationship had fallen apart overnight. Chloe responded after a short pause, speaking gently and reminding Naomi that she was far stronger than she realized, that she had already endured so much, and that she didn't have to face any of this alone. Those words brought brief relief, but the unease lingered, and after ending the call, Naomi lay back on the bed, eyes shut, feeling exposed despite the secure space around her. The following day took an unexpected turn when Detective Jones asked her to come in and listen to a newly obtained recording from Leo, an informant who had gained access to Duke's inner circle. The message revealed plans to continue targeting Naomi and stop her from ever speaking publicly, which left her stunned and searching for answers. Detective Jones explained that this situation went beyond Julian, involving hidden dealings that her testimony could uncover, making her a serious concern for others involved. The realization that she was facing not just one person but an entire group sent a chill through her, mixing fear with anger, yet it also sparked a powerful resolve within her. When Jones warned that protecting her could become even riskier, Naomi didn't hesitate, firmly stating that she refused to back down and would not be intimidated anymore. Her confidence surprised even the seasoned detective, marking a clear shift from fear to resolve. As rain pounded the precinct windows later that day, Naomi sat in a tense conference room with officers mapping out their next steps, understanding that the focus had now widened to breaking apart the whole operation behind Julian. Detective Jones stood and explained that Leo had shared details about an upcoming meeting involving Duke and his associates at a warehouse outside the city, and as Naomi listened she searched his face, hoping this plan would finally bring everything to an end. Detective Jones explained that the meeting was about planning to get rid of Naomi and make sure Julian stayed quiet. Naomi felt a pang of fear every time she heard the word eliminate, but she pushed it down. She knew showing weakness could cost her everything. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Jones shook his head firmly. "You can't be anywhere near this. It's too dangerous." Naomi stood determined. "This isn't just your problem. It's mine too. I won't just sit back while others risk their lives for something I started." The room went quiet and Jones looked at her with a mix of respect and concern, realizing arguing was pointless. "Fine," he said, "but this is non-negotiable. You'll be under our protection and your safety comes first." That night everything was set. Naomi and Jones waited in a disguised vehicle at a safe distance from the warehouse. Flickering lights and shadowy figures came and went, while Leo, hidden inside with a microphone, transmitted everything live. "They're here." Duke arrived with 2 others, Leo said calmly, though Naomi could feel the danger in every word. She listened closely as Duke's cold voice filled the radio. "She's made too much noise. If she testifies, it'll sink all of us. We need to finish this now." One man warned that the police might already know too much, but Duke insisted the plan was ready and they only had to wait for the right moment. Naomi's chest tightened as she realized they were talking about her like she was disposable. Anger rose, but she forced herself to stay focused. Then Jones gave the signal. Police vehicles surrounded the warehouse, cutting off every exit. Inside, Leo played his part, acting surprised as agents stormed in with weapons drawn. "Freeze. Police. Everyone on the ground," shouted one officer. Shots rang out as Duke and his men resisted, the gunfire echoing through the building. From the car, Naomi listened, heart racing, while Detective Jones sat beside her, radio in hand, tracking every move of the dangerous operation. The update came through quickly. 2 suspects were in custody, and Duke was still resisting but clearly running out of options. After several tense minutes, the situation was brought under control, and the space fell quiet except for firm voices and the sound of restraints being secured. Duke was transported to the precinct and held separately from Julian, while Naomi sat trying to steady her thoughts after everything she had just witnessed. Despite Detective Jones urging her to rest, she insisted on seeing Duke, feeling a strong need to look him in the eye and understand who had been working behind the scenes against her. Inside the interview room, Duke greeted her with a smug expression, speaking with mockery and trying to shake her confidence by suggesting this was far from over. Naomi met his words calmly, making it clear she understood exactly what had been set in motion and that those responsible would face the consequences. When Duke hinted that powerful people beyond him were involved and warned her to step back, Naomi refused to be intimidated, stating firmly that she would not stop until the entire truth was uncovered. Later, alone again in her secure room, the tension lingered, and although she knew a major step had been taken, his words echoed in her mind, reminding her that this fight was bigger than she had imagined. As night settled over the city lights outside her window, she felt both isolated and stronger than ever, driven not only by her own struggle but by the need to stand for others who had been silenced. Meanwhile, the investigation team reviewed newly recovered recordings, revealing names, locations, and conversations that exposed a much larger hidden operation. Sitting beside Detective Jones, Naomi absorbed each detail, feeling fear and anger rise but refusing to retreat. When Jones explained that some of the new names were tied to powerful institutions and that this case went far beyond a single incident, Naomi asked what came next. Jones answered honestly, saying the first priority was her protection, because now she wasn't just a victim, but someone who held information capable of shaking people who had worked quietly for years. Naomi's eyes stayed on the screen, though by now the constant sense of danger had become almost familiar. One face made her freeze: Clayton Albright. The sharp, composed image of the man hit her like a jolt. Not only was Albright a powerful businessman with political influence, but he was also her stepfather. The realization made the air feel heavy. Her relationship with him had always been distant and cold, marked by his strict and controlling nature, but she never imagined he could be involved in something this sinister. Albright? He can't be involved, she whispered to herself, more in disbelief than to Detective Jones. You know him? Jones asked, noticing her reaction. Naomi nodded slowly. He was married to my mother. Always cold, always controlling, but I never thought he was capable of this. The room went quiet, tension hanging thickly between them. Jones's expression grew serious. This changes everything. If Albright is involved, this is personal. We need to move fast before he covers his tracks. The team immediately began monitoring his communications, and what they intercepted confirmed her worst fears. In one call, Albright spoke with someone whose voice made Naomi's stomach drop: her mother, Adrian. Everything is getting complicated. Naomi is too involved. We can't let this come out or it'll ruin. Naomi's hands shook as she listened, whispering, "It can't be," unable to fully absorb the chilling words of Albright. We can still fix this, he continued coldly. If we make her disappear before she testifies, everything will calm down. Julian is out. Now she's the only obstacle. Naomi couldn't bear to hear more and turned away from the screen. Detective Jones placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. I know this is overwhelming, but we need you to stay strong. What they said is enough to incriminate them both. We will act, though it will be risky. Naomi whispered the word she had feared most. My mother. She realized with a crushing weight that her own mother had been complicit. We're going to stop them, Jones reassured her. This isn't just about them. It's about everything you've endured. We won't let this go unpunished. That night, the team moved on Albright's mansion, searching for hidden documents and evidence of his illegal network. Naomi watched from a nearby van, heart pounding, as agents stormed the property and found Albright and her mother in a heated argument, papers and contracts scattered across the table. Albright shouted in defiance, "You have nothing against me," while her mother with a bitter smile asked, "And what are you going to do with me? Arrest a mother for protecting her daughter. Naomi couldn't watch anymore. She turned away, overwhelmed. Hours later at the precinct, both were held in separate cells. Emotionally drained, Naomi made her way to confront her mother. "Why?" she asked, voice breaking. Her mother looked up, a mix of sorrow and coldness in her eyes. "I did what I had to do. Clayton promised safety for both of us. I never thought it would go this far." "Safety?" Naomi's voice trembled with fury. "You wanted to destroy me." Her mother tried to defend herself. "You can't understand. Everything I did was for us. But you became a problem. I had no other choice." Tears streamed down Naomi's face as she looked at her mother one last time before leaving the room, the silence behind her heavy and unending. That night, as the team went through the seized documents, Detective Jones handed Naomi a cup of coffee. "You took a huge step today. This won't be easy, but we're closer to putting an end to this," he said. Naomi nodded, though the comfort barely touched the ache in her chest. She had lost her mother not just physically, but emotionally, realizing the enemy had lurked inside her own home. Still, she knew she couldn't stop. The fight wasn't over, and she refused to let herself break. Months later, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom buzzed with tension, filled with murmurs as Naomi sat beside the prosecutors, ready to face Julian Duke Albright and, most painfully, her mother. The mountain of evidence, from recordings to confiscated documents, had made the case a national headline. Naomi clasped her hands tightly as the judge entered. Before her sat the defendants: Julian, eyes averted; Duke with a mocking grin; Albright, calm and composed; and her mother Adrian, pale and distant, head bowed, almost unrecognizable. The lead prosecutor launched into the case, detailing charges of conspiracy to commit murder, corruption, money laundering, and contract manipulation. Each word hit Naomi hard, but she stayed strong, determined to reclaim control of her life. Recordings of Julian and Duke were played, capturing their plans to eliminate her. Julian looked down, avoiding attention, while Duke seemed to revel in the moment. Then the focus shifted to Albright, whose bank transfers and illegal contracts exposed his role in the corruption network. When her mother's involvement was revealed through incriminating phone calls, Naomi felt the room grow heavier. Her mother didn't deny her actions, and when given the chance to speak, she looked at Naomi without seeking forgiveness, leaving only the weight of betrayal between them. Naomi listened as her mother spoke softly. "I made mistakes, but I acted out of desperation. I never wanted it to end this way. There's no excuse for what I did, but I hope one day you can understand." The words were heavy with regret, yet they couldn't undo the pain she had caused. After weeks of hearings, the day of sentencing finally arrived. The judge read the verdicts with a solemn tone. Julian Vance, for conspiracy to commit murder and money laundering, was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without parole. Julian showed little reaction, his face set in defeat. Francisco Duke Miller, for conspiracy and organized crime involvement, received 25 years, with parole possible after 15 years, shrugging as though it meant nothing. Clayton Albright, convicted of corruption, conspiracy to commit murder, and manipulating government contracts, was sentenced to 30 years without parole, his calm demeanor hiding a tense rage. Finally, Adrian Albright, Naomi's mother, was sentenced to 10 years with parole possible after serving half. Relief and sadness washed over Naomi. Her mother would no longer be part of her life, but she had done the right thing by speaking the truth. Leaving the courthouse amid reporters and flashing cameras, Naomi stayed silent, guided by Detective Jones, who had supported her through every step. "How do you feel?" he asked in the car. "Relieved, I suppose, but exhausted. This isn't just justice, it's the loss of everything I thought I had," she said quietly, staring out the window. Jones reassured her, "What you've done is brave, not just for you but for everyone who has suffered like this. That network will never harm anyone again." Naomi nodded, knowing the words were true, but feeling the emptiness of what had been lost. Months later, she began rebuilding her life, leaving her work as a patent lawyer behind to start a foundation dedicated to helping victims of conspiracies and abuse. Determined to turn her pain into purpose, Naomi's journey had shaped her into a strong, resilient woman, determined to use her voice to make a difference. One day, while preparing a charity event, she received a letter from prison. It was from her mother. Naomi held it in her hands for several moments before opening it, bracing herself. The letter was short but heavy with emotion. Naomi, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I want you to know I am truly sorry. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want you to live a full life, something I never learned to do. I love you even if I don't deserve it. Mom, she folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Naomi wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive, but she also realized that holding on to hatred would get her nowhere. A small part of her began to heal. That evening, gazing at the city lights from her apartment window, she felt a peace she hadn't known in months. The battle was over. Her life would never be the same, but she was ready to build something new, something better. And for the first time she truly believed she could succeed. Did you enjoy Naomi's story? Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked it, you can support the channel by sending a super thanks, helping me bring more stories like this. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to check out the 2 new life stories on the screen and subscribe for more. See you in the next story with love and respect.